Hello, everyone. Oh,
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
okay, we're back this week. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Renee. I'm the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I'm Achara Tarfa, an IFS and trauma recovery coach.
So happy to have everyone joining us again for Courageous Custody, Real Stories, Real Solutions. We want to start by always reminding people that we are not giving legal advice or therapy, although it can feel like it.
Yes, we are not doing that. And if you're feeling triggered, we want you to take care of yourself and understand that if you need to step away, it's okay. Just come back and join us. We'd love to hear from you. So today's topic we're going to discuss, Renee, is finding your voice, how to create strong parenting agreements and proposals with a narcissist.
Yes. Oh, goodness. This is a big one. So we'll jump right into our real story this week. And this week's real story is about Mary. So Mary is a small business owner. She's doing well, but her life really became chaos thanks to her narcissistic co-parent.
Thanks.
Really, she was mostly just trying to put out fires, doing it one email at a time, right? Let's figure this out over email. Let's figure that out over email. They were trying to figure out their schedule. And then at a certain point, one of their sons wanted soccer, the other one wanted band. And she was just trying to get agreement on that and all the particulars for that. Reimbursements for school supplies and extracurriculars. The list goes on. So it was like pulling teeth just to get him to, it's like he lived just to say no, whether the kids wanted it or not. And so, there was a lot of resistance and criticism that was going on with her, right? Why are you not buying this or that the kids need? Why are you not sending that item over to my house where it can disappear forever or come back damaged, right? I want more time. I know my best friend at one point when I was going through my own battle said that, if you gave him 364 days, he'd take you to court to get that last day, saying that it was owed to him, right? So Mary got a lawyer, Terrence, and Terrence suggested mediation, right? So a lot of our clients, a lot of protective parents, if you're going through court, you're going to go through mediation. Sometimes it's required, right? Starts at the beginning.
And sometimes not once, but twice even sometimes.
Oh my goodness, even more. Yeah, exactly. And then later on in a court case, it'll turn more into like a settlement conference. There's enough information and evidence and evaluation report out there that makes it so that, look, we got to just settle this or go to trial. But when she was in mediation, her lawyer, Terrence, was suggesting things that made no sense. It was like she didn't know who she was sitting beside, right? It was like, who is this lawyer? Because Terrence was saying things like, oh, sure, my client will agree to that, without ever talking to Mary, right? Or sure, that sounds reasonable. And Mary's sitting there thinking, what on earth makes you think that this would be reasonable for these kids? So we ended up using our proposal template that we use in the blueprint. Right off the bat, Mary was able to get some space, get some things settled. A schedule got set. The way decisions were made got set. Holidays, the schedule, and other details around those finally got set. And I checked in with Mary about a year later, and she was like, he's still a narcissist. But there's almost no drama I have to pay attention to, just the occasional stuff that comes up. She said even the boys were regulating better. And she had put certain therapy terms into the agreement for the boys that helped them with dysregulation after visits with their, coercive controller, narcissistic parents. So they're all just, happier. But, I have to tell you, it was very, very hard for her to sit down and just ask for what she wanted. And Acho, we see this with protective moms a lot.
Yeah, we do. Our protective moms have been great for years speaking up for what their child wants. However, when it comes to speaking up for what they want, oftentimes it's foreign territory. And so our protective moms, they spend most of their time living for their kids. They often forget who they were before they had kids. And of course, right? Like once you have kids, we have our kiddos, we learn quickly that they come first. And what I found helpful is educating our protective moms about the fact that they can include themselves in their community of care, that
Mhm.
they too matter, just like their kids matter. And so when it comes to sitting down and using what I like to call voice and choice, it can be quite difficult because voice and choice, that muscle that our protective moms build in their kiddos so well, they often don't flex in themselves. So just like we're at the gym when we are learning a new exercise or we're refreshing or going back to the gym, it takes a few times to get the form correct before we can start building that muscle through repetition. And so what we provide is safety, and the more safety that can be provided for our protective moms to begin to learn or relearn what their voice and choice sounds like or looks like, the
Mm.
more they can repeat these actions and really ask for what they want without feeling shame or guilt that they're speaking up for themselves.
Yeah, voice or choice. Well, they've spent, so much time in these relationships where if they dared to use their voice, if they dared to try to be part of any choice or choose anything, that they were punished for it. It's things like
Absolutely.
the silent treatment or being ridiculed or some form of retaliation or punishment often comes into these things with these moms, right?
Yeah.
With these
Yeah,
protective.
absolutely. So it often can create a freeze response, right? We were talking about trauma responses before, and they know they can't fly because they can't go anywhere because they've got to deal with this court situation or this settlement agreement. And so they often kind of just freeze and don't really know how to flex that voice and choice muscle because anytime that they try to express, I remember in my own life, like just even so much as decorating the living room. My home in my townhouse, it went years with just a love seat and a couch and just paint on the walls, and the paint
Mhm.
was in a particular pattern in the way in which my ex wanted it, and a TV, and that is it that was in my entire it was a really big living room because it was just I froze because any suggestion I made, "Oh, let's do that." Nope, nope, it was stupid, it didn't work, it was this, and it's just shame, 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 and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I just might not say anything. And our protective moms get used to just, okay, if it's not perfect or if it's not the right thing,
Mm.
or, it's not within this, this or that thinking, right? There's no gray area when you're surviving trauma, when you're in
Yeah.
active trauma, because that's really unsafe. It has to be perfect. It has to be this way. And so when they sit down and go, okay, well, what do you want? I I I don't know, and it's really takes a minute to sit and go, "Okay," and that's why the moms, the protective moms that come into our course, they just really have that time to just really sort of get in our mindset calls, get with your coaching calls, and really talk about what it is that means the most to them, that means the most to them for their
One.
kids.
Yeah, and I see, we see that freeze thing happen a lot. It's true. It's, when we talk about, hey, let's take a look at, the draft you have for your parenting plan. And the answer that we often get is, I haven't been able to do a thing. They really do
Mhm.
become frozen. It's like this paralysis as soon as
Yeah.
they sit down to do it. And I would argue that another piece of that, though, for a lot of protective parents is, you know, if I do ask for what I want, um, how's that going to look in court? Am I going to look selfish? Am I going to look non-collaborative? They're so used to bending over backward. And then we know when we get into court that there's this gender bias that is statistically proven against moms in this case, that it becomes very, very difficult for them to sort of decide, am I being collaborative enough for the court? And it's a fair question, but then, the pendulum swings too far in that direction. And
Mhm.
they do become frozen and they're afraid of what's happening with the court.
Yeah.
So let's dive into sort of the steps today that we're going to offer to create that plan. And this is I kind of want to talk about it. We're really looking at a little bit of a 10,000-foot view here, right? Because there's so many particulars to these things, and that's part of what we want. We want those particulars in. But the first step is you really want to start by creating a list of areas to tackle, right? It's not about, the what you found off the internet or anything like that. It's like, what is it that is important for your kiddos, for you, for your family, really, right? So you have to create what that list is. And, the top two things that always come up for protective parents is physical custody and legal custody, which has different terms in different jurisdictions. But I think everybody understands what we're saying, which is, what does that parenting schedule, what does that timeshare split look like? And then also, who's making the decisions? And it can be hard for protective parents because many times they're also the primary caregiver. And the other parent is now coming in claiming, no, they were, or they were just as much, that the duties were 50-50. This term comes into it, 50-50. And that's essentially what we're trying to maybe adopt, but often avoid when we're putting together the parenting plan. So we've got the two different types of custody, physical and legal. But I think a lot of moms are really surprised by the invitation that we give to say, hey, what about holidays? What about insurance? What about dating? What about romantic partners? What about the way that you treat each other's homes? What about how, the extended family gets involved? There's so many different terms. There's so many different buckets. And so I think the first step is to sit down and think about every little thing you can and create those bigger buckets out of all of that to kind of decide how you want to put it together.
And the big one that sticks out to me is religion.
Yes.
You know?
Religion, diet, extracurriculars. Yeah. Religion,
and then you have taking into consideration your culture and the culture that your ex may be part of and the culture that you're a part of, and how, those cultural things play in. Like you have to really think about all of those things, because all of it matters. And oftentimes you don't know that it's that important to you until it happens and you didn't have it in place.
Right.
Right.
Because if you don't have it down, there'll be a fight about it.
Yes.
Which kind of leads to the second thing that we'd, that I always like to tell people to start out focusing on, which is to review the issues you've had in the past, not just the present ones. You want to include the present ones, like this is the stuff we're coming up against. But then people forget about the stuff of the past. And if there's one thing we know about narcissistic abusers, it's that they really operate in patterns, right? They're actually, if you think about it, kind of really predictable with what they're going to do, right? So if you think back to what happened in the past, I think it's a mistake to say, well, that was way back then and it hasn't happened for a year or two. Because what we find is that the chances of it coming back are very, very high. And if it never comes back, okay, but at least you're thinking about that and you're putting terms into your parenting proposal, your parenting agreement that cover that.
It lends clarity, right? It may not be what's going on now, but it certainly will inform your decision making now. And clarity is one of your best tools in having that. We talk about it all the time with how our emotions take us out of accessing our prefrontal cortex and our reasoning and our logic and our clear mind. And so that right there, like you just said, it lends clarity. It really does. It informs how we make our decisions moving forward. If we think about how things came up in the past and how we dealt with them then and how we want to deal with them moving forward.
Do you think that there's even possibly something calming about facing the issues that have come up in the past as well as the present, and kind of finding a way to almost, you're grappling with it, but then maybe you wrangle it?
Yeah, I mean, you have some space from it now, so you can maybe look at it from a different angle, sort of like, when we see a diamond, we see, it from this angle, it looks this way, and we turn it and it has a different facet, and we look at it and it has a different angle this way. And so when we look at sort of even our pain from our past and the lessons that we can learn from that, if we sort of turn it or have a different view of it, especially if you're in space with someone who can either co-regulate with you, hold your hand, be on the phone when you're trying to go through this, because when you were going through it back then, you were going through it alone. Likely you didn't contact your family because they didn't necessarily understand, or you've contacted them before and they weren't there for you, or whatever it is. It's helpful that you've got some distance from it now, maybe a safe person that you can sort of look at it again and go, okay, what is it that I went through? Let me sort of zoom out a bit more and really figure out and get clear on what I want that to look like moving forward.
Going forward, that's right. Yeah. So then the third item that, we like to talk to our clients about, just thinking again from a bigger picture, is actually to not ignore the far future. And I want to chat a bit about this because people really resist because their lawyers tell them, don't worry about that now. You can come back to that later. To which my response is always, and how much are you going to pay for that? You're already paying for what you're doing now. So figure out what you want for the future. But that can be hard because a lot of times we'll have, parents who are saying, well, our child is 2 years old. So there's no reason to think about the future. But I do invite protective parents to think about what are you going to do when they're ready to drive? What are you going to do when they're ready to date? What about when you're ready to do a cell phone? How's it going to look preparing for college? What about conscription? And so it's like, you have to think about all these things now so that you're not, think about all your spending right now, I like to say, because when I'm talking to them, they want to just do what's easy and what's quick because it's so painful to go through this.
Yeah.
So it's like, I really will. And my lawyer is really putting so much pressure on me, Renee. So I'd rather just focus on the now. But I encourage our clients to just push back and say, no, let's put this stuff in about when we decide to get them a cell phone. Let's put this stuff in about driving and getting the car and managing the insurance and all of that stuff right now. Let's put in the stuff about saving up for college and what that college fund can look like, right? So yeah, you have a newborn, you have a 2-year-old, you have a 6-year-old. Think ahead and put it in there.
I think
Right. You
that's
can
so
still leave
wise.
it a little loose in terms of, okay, these are the things we will discuss, but there's things already that you want, whether you realize it or not. Fight for them now is what I like to say.
And don't rely on, he's agreeing to it, we'll just figure it out later. Remember, with narcissists, the goalpost moves constantly.
Right.
And so the more we have in writing, and even sometimes with that, they don't necessarily adhere to what's in writing. So,
I know.
I mean, and that's the truth. That's a whole nother topic. But at least you have it in writing so that can be defaulted back on. Don't go, oh, I just think that it's going to be fine. I trust him, or I think that that's the goalposts always will move.
Yep.
And you're safer and better off having the clarity on paper now.
Yep.
And figuring, so you don't have
it
to,
in the
so
agreement.
you don't have to get emotional as far as just stressing yourself out or being in dysregulation when your kid is 16 and there's discussion of the insurance and all that, and none of that was talked about. That is
and all the stuff that they said. I love that you're talking about, oh, well, they said, we'll talk about that later because I think we're on the same page. Guess what? You're not going to be on when your kid is 15 and a half, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So yes. So thinking about what's in the future. And then the next thing that we'll talk about today that you want to think about when you're doing, this is kind of a little bit of a micro thing, but it pans out into the whole thing, which is be detailed, be detailed, be detailed, be detailed about everything. My favorite thing to tell moms to be detailed about is they have to put in pickup and drop off times, right? Start days and end days. I think it's so important because there's so much fighting about this. And, moms realize that. They've gone through it. They're dealing with all the fighting. But the more detailed this can be, the better. And I think what we mostly see people come up against is their own lawyers saying, what is this? It's so long. The other side will never accept this. Or if you're taking it into court, the judge will never look through this or this. And listen, I kind of feel like I'm saying again and again to clients, I'm here to tell you that we have sent hundreds of moms through with a detailed, 35 pager that has given them so much peace. And so put in the detail. Yes, it's going to make your agreement longer, but a narcissist is going to find every loophole they can.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Even with the pickup and drop off time. Okay, well, what happens if the parent doesn't pick the kid up?
Mm-hmm.
Have it in there. Go and then pick them up. Like all that needs to be in right. What if there's an exchange? What if it's not during school and it's off school hours and you have to meet somewhere and the parent doesn't show up? How much time do you give to wait before you can leave? Like all of those things. One of the big things that I remember from some moms is picture day and what a haircut looks like. Picture day is huge for moms, and they don't even think about that. It's until picture day. And it's like, they sent them to school looking like this with this on and not the outfit that I gave and so forth. Put those details in, you know. I know it may seem small, but it is a big deal to you and your
Yeah.
child when that time comes. And so I think it's so wise to just be detailed.
But I think the other piece about putting these things in is that when you have something where you have every detail in, and then, I don't know that we're going to dive so much into this today, but I think the important next step there is to realize that when you go to negotiate, there are some of these things you're going to have to let go, but you have to decide first off, what is it that you're willing to let go of? And second off, if you're letting go of that, what can you get in its place, or what can you, in letting go of that, then make them adopt from the other things that you've got that are perhaps more important to you, right? Because picture day is a great example, because you want to sort of, I think, I'm always sort of saying, let's change perspective a bit here, right? It's kind of the type of thing where you buy that new end table and your kiddo is putting on their ice skate and they put a scratch right across the top of it. You could get really upset about the fact that you finally bought new. This is why we can't have new things, right? This can't have nice things. Or you could say, this is a memory of us ice skating. So when your kiddo is appearing for picture day, wearing a shirt you didn't send and that they honestly didn't want to, when their hair is whatever it is, there's almost something funny about that. There's almost something that you can lean into, right? And so I think you have to we're always saying choose your battles to our clients, I know, but that's one of the things you need to think about. But start out putting it in there.
Start out putting it in. Yeah, for sure.
So the last thing is, I love telling clients this one, but I love to say to them, define everything. And when they're kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm going to, I'm like, no. You have to define what constitutes a week. At least 4 times now, we have had moms come back and say, my agreement that I had, before I started working with you, et cetera, basically says a week. And here's what he's turned a week to. I've actually seen these messages that the narcissist will send where they'll say, yeah, that's my week. And then they will give these dates that equal like 13 days. I've seen this. And it's like, what is going on that you're sitting there thinking that a week is longer than a week? But they define it by, well, the week really includes the weekend before and the week after, plus they have a couple of school days off. So I'm just going to take those 2 because that's really the spirit of the agreement. And it's just phenomenally ridiculous. And so you have to define these things. You have to say, you get 1 week vacation in the summer. Each parent gets 1 week vacation in the summer to go no longer than 6 nights, 7 days. You have to put it. It doesn't matter. And I think, I don't know how often you've heard this, Audra, but some of our clients feel silly when they're sitting there defining things like what constitutes a day, what constitutes 24 hours for ROFR, right of first refusal, right?
Yeah, it's because they really are moms sit there and go, we really have to do this? Yes, you really have to do this. Just like you had to explain when you were married to that person certain things about your child when you were parenting them and trying to co-parent with them, and you weren't getting those things then because you had to sit and explain, and then you just got tired of doing it, and so you just did it yourself, right? Like, it's the same. That person is still there. The person that you have to explain everything to, define things to, because their meaning is not your meaning, and your meaning is not their meaning. And so it's very helpful to actually define what a week means or what anything means. And the other thing is, what I've seen is the other parent, the narcissist, the narcissist often will check out and disassociate, right? Because they just do. They're not always present all the time either. So because they're likely thinking about something about themselves. So when they check out, they're not really present oftentimes. And that means that they're not familiar with their parenting agreement or the settlement. And so they're often coming to you to have you re-explain to them that sometimes, I know in several situations with moms, got the years mixed up, right? Like often it'll be like odd years, even years. You get the child this time, and then they get it mixed up, and then they go, "Oh, it's my week." No, it's not. This is what it says. And so it's very helpful to just make sure that the meaning and the definitions of those things are in there. So all you have to do is literally copy and paste. You don't have to
Yes.
spend 2 hours on our family wizard defining anything. You're really saving yourself time now. You're saving yourself time in the future by getting it all done and as much out as possible and defined
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And I've noticed that. So when we do see these protective parents who get their agreement done, it's interesting the aftermath of having that agreement done and ready to put out there. Right there's a lot of doubt about whether they put the right things in there, and certainly some of it has to do with, is this logistically what we should be doing for court? But many times, excuse me, many times it has to do with the substance of it, the content. And I find it fascinating, the self-doubt that is due to what they're asking for versus the process itself.
Mm. The self-doubt as far as them
They put it
really
together.
questioning,
Yeah,
really
they've got it all
questioning their
there.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
is it okay? Is what they came up with is this 25, 30 pages, 35, however many pages? Is this the right thing to ask for, right? There's this enormity to the fact that once you have it signed, it really is kind of hard to get these things
For
changed,
sure.
modified.
Yeah. Well, it's not just it's hard, yes, but it costs you money. You've got
Yeah.
to go back to court and spend 100. Remember how much it cost you the first time? So you are literally saving yourself time and money doing it. Our moms are saving themselves if they just follow that strategy and take some of these tips. They're saving themselves. So there are so many things in my parenting agreement. I wish I had you and me 10 years ago, telling me
Mm,
these things because I'm
mhm.
dealing with some of the things now that I didn't think about then. And
Yeah.
it adds to your, oh my goodness, I'm going through this again. And then you still have that part of you that's like, I really want to, help this person and get along with this person for the sake of my child. But it oftentimes is really difficult because they're still caught up in the past or the loop or trying to control you. And so, you have to be very aware of not being sucked right back into that space you were when you were going through it the first time. So having as much in it as possible is really helpful. And it helps to not have that self-doubt. It's helpful to see it and go, you know what? That's what we agreed to. That's what I'm sticking to. And no emotion is involved in it. It's set here. I had
Yeah.
planned for this. Off you
Yes.
go.
Yeah. No
And
emotion.
feel into the confidence of that, right?
Yeah.
Feel into the confidence of that.
I think you spend the emotion when you're doing these things, when you're putting it together, when you're saying, this is what I want. This is what is best for the kids. And, when you're putting it together, one more thing I'll say, I know we're going to wrap up in a few, but one more thing I'll say is, when you're going into mediation, you've got to remember that the mediator's job is to get you guys to come to an agreement. And many times that means that you're both meeting halfway. So you're sort of cutting your desires in half, right? What we almost always see, I'm saying almost, but I'm pretty sure it's always see, with a narcissistic abuser as a co-parent is that they come in with a very skewed, very one-sided, ridiculous, really, parenting proposal. Right. And then the healthier parent comes in with something that is fair, because there's this belief that if you
Oh,
come in with something that's fair, that
spot
it'll
on.
just get adopted, they'll thank you for it, and you guys will sign and move on your merry way. And so I find myself reminding, the people we work with again and again, you should actually just be asking, you don't need to skew so far off, but yeah, you should keep it as tight as possible. You should keep it a lot more skewed towards yourself, not so ridiculously so. Because if you really want to settle, if you really want to mediate, which admittedly saves you a whole heck of a lot of money,
It
but
does.
also admittedly just doesn't often happen with a narcissist, right?
No.
Because they want what they want and that's it. But when we do see our moms sort of negotiate, they're negotiating down to a point where they and their children are losing because they came in with a fair agreement. And the other, side is negotiating down, but still really getting the lion's share of what they want.
Absolutely. That's such a great point, Renee. That's such a great point, because these are protective moms have been compromising with this narcissist for how long?
Oh my
So
God.
it's very familiar to
Yeah.
just come in and be fair, and I just want to be done with it, and so forth. And I love that you said, like, the narcissist is negotiating down and still getting the lion's share. And so come in knowing what your voice and choice is, and not so much with all your final offer on the table, right? Like,
Right.
come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, come in,
Pushing
and then
it.
you can negotiate down too, to where you finally are both. I know an attorney told me once, like, what did they say? If both sides lose, that's a win for everyone
Yeah.
when it came to family
Yeah.
court.
Yeah. It's unreal. And the healthier parents are always coming in with an agreement centered on the children. And the
Yes,
unhealthy parent, the narcissist, is coming in with something that is me, 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 and my ability to show off what a great parent I am, even though I've never parented before.
correct.
So it's you really do have to cushion it, so that you give yourself some leverage.
I think
So
that's
there's so
great.
much more we can say on this, I swear. But we have some questions. So we do have that template available. We do have our own template. It's available at custodytemplates.com. And actually, I think we can sort of show that to y'all. So you can get a copy of our agreement, which was designed specifically for narcissists. And that's the stuff, that's what Mary used, our case study for today, our real story for today. And that's what our clients use, that you can actually get separately if you're not working with us. You can go to custodytemplates.com to grab it. But the thing that, again, and the thing that's going on with that template is you really want it to be airtight as much as possible. There are suggestions there for what to choose that works for your narcissistic issues. It covers topics that a lot of moms don't think of. It's actually just a huge bestseller for us. So it's there for anybody who wants it. Otherwise, just follow what we're saying, right? Just go along with everything that we gave you today, and you should be good.
I think we gave a big chunk.
Oh my
Definitely
goodness.
helped me. Would have helped
All
me
of it.
10 years
Do it.
ago, for sure.
Okay. So I guess that's all that we have for this week's episode of Courageous Custody. But before we go, thank you so much for joining us, whether live or on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way we may have. We have some great takeaways this week. So create a list of areas to tackle for your parenting proposal. Review issues you've had in the past with your narcissist as well as present. Don't ignore the far future of what is going to happen along your child's growth. Be detailed about pickup, drop-off times, and define everything, even what constitutes a week, a day, whatever. Next week, join us again at 7 p.m. ET here. Like or follow or bookmark us so that you can get the notifications and not miss a thing, because what we're talking about might just catch you when you need it. And don't forget to check the comments to get a free copy of the court appearance prep list. And you can go to thecustodyblueprint.com to learn about the different ways to get help in your case.
Yeah, and leave your own comments about your experience with this topic and any topics you'd like to see us discuss in the future. And wherever you are listening, remember you're not alone. We say this every week because you're not. Until next week, stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for what matters most.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.